Thank you, Mr. Scalise. My name is John Yun from KT. KT is a leading telecom operator in Korea. As I mentioned, our telecoms infrastructure is quite mature. So more than almost 80% of our households are already connected to very high-speed internet access capabilities. So from the telecom operator's viewpoint, our economy, Korea, is quite dependent on telecom infrastructure and IT industry. That is nowhere. Telecom operation and IT industry itself in Korea is quite mature enough. So next decades of Korean economy have to be dependent on some convergence between IT industry and other industries. But the problem is, the other industries are quite reluctant to be merged into IT industry in some respect, like health and medical industries and IT industry. And they eventually have to combine or convergence or collaboration between IT and other industries. So what will be your ideas for the good relationship between those two industries, especially in government's role?
Well, I think it's going to start at the universities. And I know in the U.S. the best research universities now have interdisciplinary programs to deal with the various technology initiatives, but not just the technology initiatives. It also brings into play the business schools, so that when you look at how they are structured, both the physical and the academic programs for these disciplines, they are physically located in the same general area. There's a lot of cross-pollination that takes place just because of the physical location. But then the course requirements are going to demand that they have an interdisciplinary approach to their learning process. With that, I think will naturally come that understanding of what the various, whether it's in the healthcare area or in the metrology area or whatever, we can think of a lot of different things that are very different but also very much interrelated. How these things play off with one another and what needs to be done to make certain that we bring everyone into the tent as we do the work. And again, I'll go back to our roadmap. We're gonna figure that out as time goes on. I think as long as we have that mindset that it is interdisciplinary and that we have to make certain that we bring all of those pieces together, both early and continuously, then I think that as we develop the plans and the paths and all the rest, that will just naturally unfold. Now the thing that hasn't happened, we talked about this for a few minutes at breakfast, that I've been pushing for about 5 years, and I'm still not quite sure why. We have consortia activities here in Korea, where there are a number of companies and universities, what have you, that are working together on certain issues in research. We have the same thing in Japan, in US, and Europe, and so on. And they're all doing just fine individually. And the consortia seems to work quite well. But we haven't yet figured out how to get the consortia of consortia to come together. There is still a hesitancy that is getting in the way of real cooperation, cross-pollination, and the elimination of the duplication that's out there today. Now, some of the duplication in the early stages I think is the right thing to do because we don't know that path clearly enough yet. So to have some duplication now, and maybe two or three of us will reach the same conclusion about this particular technology approach is either not the right one or it looks like a good one that will give the rest of us confidence. Well, they see it and they see it. We must all be on the right track. If we were the only ones that saw it and everyone else saw something else. So I think that there is a way for it to come together, but we haven't done that yet. So that's a complicated problem. But I think that we're beginning to move in that direction, and I think we'll get there.
I think about 5 minutes. I think if you tell us what occupies you the most as the president of Semiconductor Industry Association, I think that will shed light on some of the questions. how important is your work in relation with government affairs, for example, and how much time you spend with the research community and the universities and so on. So I think they will shed some light on something.
That's a good question. Our number one priority, where I spend most of my time, is on the basic research. Making certain that we are doing everything that needs to be done to get the basic research funded. And again, our view is that that's the responsibility of the federal government, to fund the universities to do basic research. But, as you know, all governments have lots of demands on them, and if you don't stay close to that issue and make certain it happens, there's always someone else with a priority that gets in the way. So that's where I spend most of my time. And as some of you may know, maybe not, but in the President's State of the Union address a couple of months ago, one of the commitments that he made was to address and fund the American Competitiveness Initiative. And we were very, very strong proponents of that language being put in the State of the Union address so that we could get the appropriations and the legislation moving this year to get that funded. So that's number one. The second one that we spend a lot of time on is making certain that the environmental safety and health that's associated with our manufacturing operations and the work that surrounds the chemicals and all the things we have to handle is being done in a way that absolutely ensures that every worker in the industry is working in a safe, clean environment. And again, that is an international effort. In fact, there is an international symposium every year, and we rotate it between Korea, Japan, the U.S., and Europe every year. We want to make certain that we continue to ensure that that workplace is always going to be safe and that we're doing the right thing in the environment. And again, we don't have any governments telling us what to do there. When we decided that we would reduce the amount of PFC we use, it was because we thought that was a good thing to do. And all the companies and all the countries decided they would support that, we've done that. So those are the two things that are uppermost in my mind. Public policy I deal with a lot, but mostly as a maintenance issue that deals with some of these kinds of things. Now there are other things, there are trade issues that come up from time to time, but they tend to be kind of individual items that emerge because of what a country does or whatever happens it is. But it's driven by some external source. It's not something that we are trying to make happen. Where in the case of technology, environmental safety, and health, we're going to make that happen.
Okay, last one. As I mentioned, Mr. Scalise is serving on the President Bush's Council of Advisors on Technology and Science. What do you advise him? And do you have any policy recommendation to give to our President?
Well, I just mentioned the American Competitiveness Initiative. One of my responsibilities on the Council of Advisors was to head up a study dealing with information technology and innovation. And I presented that report to the President about a year ago, and we made it very clear at that stage that this was something that we had to address. And we got him to address it in the State of the Union address, so I'm very pleased about it. There have been several other studies come out since that time that have been also noted, but that was the seminal study that drove that. So that's the number one thing that I have done in that. I am now heading up a study dealing with the high-end computing processing capability and where we are there and what the innovation necessary to maintain our leadership in that area and so on. So that's something we're just beginning to look at now. But these are very extensive, large studies that we do. And my feeling is that we don't want to see any one of these studies just all the work done and then go sit on a shelf. We've got to make something happen. So I'm very pleased with the first one that I headed up that is now in the public policy arena.
No advice to our President? Okay, with this, we have to end. Actually, Mr. Scalise is heading to Taipei immediately after this lecture. Actually, he has apparently has appointment and with the Taiwanese the president So we have to end here. As you all know, we've been inviting all these distinguished the policymakers and the scholars, and rarely we have these industrial leaders, and we're very, very fortunate this morning with Mr. Scalise. He's very, very enlightening and insightful views on technological change in the future of IT leadership. I hope we get him back to Seoul in the near future. Thank you very much.